Hey friends, I hope you had a great day at camp. I did. And now it's time for Campfire Stories. So tonight I am using the prompt, what is usually the hardest part of the work I do with and for clients, and how do I lead them through it? So I have to start by, acknowledging that I have sort of two sets of clients, right? I have clients who are my psychotherapy clients, and then I have clients who come to me as coaching clients. And even within that framework, some of the people who come as sort of coaching clients might come for a very specific, EFT program, or something sort of short, maybe 4 to 6 sessions that I'm doing with them. And obviously therapy clients can be ongoing for years. Some are shorter than that, but some clients I've been with for years. And things ebb and flow with them, and generally when they come, they're sort of more in crisis or really wanting to do work about a particular thing. And then as we work with that and either clear that up or make some choices, life choices around that, then we might just roll sort of into the next thing. But I'm going to put that aside because the therapy clients are a bit of a different situation than with clients who come to me for coaching. And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to acknowledge Beth Bolton for mentioning this to me today. But I'm going to talk about the range that I really love to get into, the width and the depth that I love to get into with coaching clients who are one-on-one, so it's not part of a group, and they have committed to working with me in my Heal Your Heart, Birth Your Brilliance one-on-one coaching program, which is a 9-month program. So when people join this program, they've made a significant commitment to their own transformation, right? And there are 7 different steps that I take people through. They're not always really clearly defined. Again, there's always some back and forth, or we'll, move into something and then circle back to something that we may have already discussed within those 9 months. But generally, there's a flow. So as I look at this, it sort of breaks out, I think, into 3 different areas. So there are 7 steps that sort of break out into 3 sections. Actually, it's sort of 3, 3, and then 1. So the first section that I'm thinking about actually involves the first 3 steps of this Heal Your Heart, Birth Your Brilliance program. And before I go into the specific details, what I want to say, which is critical whether I'm working with therapy clients, short-term clients, longer-term clients, in a group program, on a retreat, that it is absolutely my responsibility, my commitment, and my intention to create a safe space. Right? So that means confidentiality, that means honoring boundaries, that means recognizing the client and I, while I have some skills that they're coming to me for, but we are equal in terms of souls here on this planet doing our work. So I try to stay out of, kind of I'm the expert, you're the one who's needing help, mentality. So there is a very conscious intention on my part to create a safe container that's non-judgmental, that's recognizing our equality, Not that I'm always perfect at this because I'm human and sometimes I screw up or I get triggered or, whatever. But so that's my intention though with all of my clients. And I like to, often we start with some sound, some tingshaws or a singing bowl to create that distinction between whatever was happening before and what we're going to do now in this time together. So that is true across the board with as much as I can with all of my clients. So the first thing in this Heal Your Heart, Birth Your Brilliance program is supporting clients to do a personal assessment. So before we even meet, I invite them to respond, to fill out a pretty thorough assessment that asks a lot of questions about what the current issue is, but also looking at all the different areas of their lives, looking at their family of origin and what may or may not happened within that context, what they believe they learned or what messages they came away from, from their mother, from their father, were there special circumstances within their household. So I really, where they think they want to make changes in their lives now. What are their beliefs around wealth? What are their beliefs around love? What are their beliefs around being deserving? What are their beliefs around health issues, right? So I really try to have them already beginning to sort of be a detective in their own lives before we even get together to do the work. So that sort of sets the stage. And the second piece is creating what I call an inspired vision. So not that it's going to be 100% clear at this point, but looking at where the client is in their life right now and what they would like to create in their life. So it's, how do you get from, as they say in the coaching world, from pain island to pleasure island, right? What is your vision for yourself and your life? So these couple of pieces, I call sort of the committing stage, right? That this is when clients are really saying yes. They're sinking in. They're in agreement to, okay, this is the program. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be as honest as I can. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to commit to doing this transformational work. So for some clients, that commitment might be the hardest part. Getting to the yes, right? Even before the assessment, agreeing to come into work with me, because there's all kinds of blocks and barriers about money and time and other commitments and what would my partner think and can I really do this for myself, right? When women in particular, we're so used to allocating our time and our resources to other people and not so good at doing that for ourselves. So sometimes just making the initial commitment to, yes, I'm going to do this for myself because I know that there, is something really important for me here, might be the hardest part. Then we go through the assessment and creating the vision. The assessment, I don't think is particularly hard. The questions are pretty clear. I think most of my clients answer them to the best of their ability. The vision part can get a little trickier because remember, I work with a lot of clients who had some pretty significant trauma. And generally, when we grow up in families where there's just parents who are struggling, right, to raise their children in the way that's in that child's greatest and highest good, right? I'm being, broad because in my definition of that, because there are some very loving, well-meaning, hardworking parents who still struggle emotionally, or knowing what their child's developmental needs are, and or they're just so busy with life that kids' needs get sort of lost, don't get met along the way. And then there's a continuum all the way to clients who are cruel and abusive and punishing to children just because they can be. So wherever you are along that continuum, you may have had the experience of sort of having your dreams squashed. Oh, that's that's just your imagination. Or, oh, you're just dreaming. Oh, you can't do that. What makes you think you could ever be a blah, 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 right? So for some clients, even creating a vision for themselves outside of their current circumstances can be a really challenging thing, because maybe in the past when they dreamed, or they, had big ideas, it was shut down, right? The lid was put on it. They were maybe even punished or told, don't be ridiculous, or stop dreaming, who don't be, think you're so great, or, pat yourself on the back, or be, what's the one about the britches? Some phrase about having big britches. I don't know. But there are many ways in which the dreams, the visions, the big ideas of children, and even, into early adulthood, can be squashed, and the joy of that taken right out of them. So when, even as a woman in your 40s or 50s or 60s, it may be really challenging to think outside the box, to create your own vision. So that part can be hard. But I think the next pieces are where, sorry, my cat is doing something weird behind me. Oh, she's trying to open the basement door. Hold on. All right, there you go. Okay, so the next parts, I think, which I call sort of the more transformational parts, where we dive into the deep work, is where, it can get really challenging for all of the clients, because we're having to look at the shadow. We're having to look at the dysfunction in our family system. We're having to look at what's been painful for us. We're having to look at the things that have created the belief systems that say we're not good enough, we're not deserving, we're not loving, we weren't wanted. Trust me, I've heard some things in my time, working with so many people over the years, that would literally take your breath away, or break your heart. I remember there was a certain time where I had multiple women at one time. I'm trying to remember the circumstance. Oh, either they had found out that they had been adopted, or somehow they had found out that their mother or their parent had considered terminating the pregnancy because it was a surprise, or it was unwanted, or it was going to be a difficult situation, whether it was because the mom was young, or family dynamics. So, and I'm not judging the decision that a woman would make to terminate a pregnancy, but what I heard from some of these women who found out later on that they either had been adopted, or that there was a consideration at one time to not continue the pregnancy. It was the weirdest thing. They all expressed this in slightly different words, but the basic underlying belief was that they did not, it wasn't okay for them to take up space in the world. To the point, to the degree that several of them even said they felt guilty even breathing the air that other people might need. Now, how the universe, or why the universe created a situation where within a very short time period, I saw a number of women who spoke about that same experience and how it impacted them. It was mind blowing for me to go to hear that from multiple women, that they didn't feel that they even had the right to take up space or to breathe the air. So when we get into this middle part, what I call the transformation, where people start to take what I call a sacred inventory of their own lives. And in the inventory part, I'm really inviting them to take an inventory of all of their own accomplishments, all of their own achievements, all of the things that they're proud of themselves for. And sometimes that's hard AF. No kidding. It's almost like anything good that ever happened didn't even exist, didn't even happen. And it's like, I have to pull it out of them. Well, you went to college, didn't you? Or you had this job, or you've created this beautiful art, or you took care of your mother when she was like, things I sort of knew about, I had picked up about them already. And it was like having to pull something out of them because they couldn't, for some clients, I'm not talking about everybody, but depending on their experience or what they had been told about not being too proud or not tooting their own horn, or maybe anytime anything good happened, something bad followed. But they had a really hard time acknowledging anything positive in their, what I call their sacred inventory. So that part can be hard. Then we go into the deep dive, and the deep dive is really working with the trauma. Obviously, this, of everything across the board, this is the most challenging part for people to navigate. One, because it's really scary to look at what might have happened to us. Two, even though sometimes clients know something, they don't know everything, and they're terrified to find out that there might be more than what they already knew about. There's shame and humiliation and self-loathing and all of the things that go along with what can happen to children emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually in families that are struggling. So I think that these, and the next thing that I'm going to say, are the most difficult parts because they go together so intimately. The next step, so personal assessment, inspired vision, sacred inventory, deep dive, learn to trust. One of the most insidious effects of not having your needs met as a child, and whether there's actual abuse or neglect or abandonment, or just the day-to-day sort of dismissal of your emotions, your feelings, your needs. But I notice this most especially around clients who have experienced sexual abuse, ongoing sexual abuse from someone who they should have been able to trust. So immediately, of course, their trust is broken. And then that gets generalized to all men or all adults or people who should be taking care of me and aren't. And that's one piece of it. The other piece of the trust is they lose trust in themselves, in their bodies, in the signals of their body, because something feels bad and somebody's telling them this feels good, or they go to someone to tell what's going on and they get shut down or don't ever talk about that again. They get shamed or blamed about what may be happening. And it's all very confusing. So, this learning to trust first themselves, their intuition, their inner knowing, the sensations that their body is sending, right? All of that, so critical. Then to trust other people, because when we have been hurt or abandoned or violated in some way, learning to trust again is a really frightening thing, to make ourselves, allow ourselves to be vulnerable again, right? And then trusting that the world is a safe place. Some of my clients and other people don't believe that the world is a safe place, that that anybody has their back. So trusting that they're not alone in the world, that there are higher levels of support, even if there may not be support right in the physical at the level that they can see. So trust, learning to trust, rebuilding trust on every level is super critical. This I have separated out, but it's kind of included in everything we do, is this idea of understanding your personal vibration. This is sort of more of a law of attraction piece, to understand that everything is energy, even your thoughts, even your emotions, energy in motion, emotion, and that your personal energy signature is what is attracting things back to you, not so much what you think you want in your mind. But we look at the emotional guidance scale where, right, joy, appreciation, gratitude, love, freedom, compassion, care are near the top, right? And then, excitement, or, the list goes down, and then we hit boredom. And then from there, it's frustration, anger, disappointment, sadness, right? All the way down to despair, depression, shame, humiliation, all these heavy, dense energies. And depending on the experiences we've had in our lives, we may be holding some very dense energy in our field without even realizing that that's what's happening, because we don't really think in terms of energy and vibration and frequency. But then we wonder why the same things keep happening, or we keep attracting the same crappy kind of guy, or, every time something good happens, something bad seems to happen afterwards. And it's tricky here, because when people first hear that their vibration is attracting perhaps these default things they don't necessarily want, it's very easy to fall into self-blame around that, right? Self-criticism. I'm going to beat myself up because I'm doing this wrong too. And so this is a place that can be really hard for folks to recognize that this is all happening on the subconscious level. This isn't their doing. This isn't because they made a mistake. This isn't because they're getting it wrong. It's because their life experience has built up more of these heavier, dense energies than it has the lighter, higher vibrational frequency energies. And until we do the work to displace and discharge that density, we continue to attract more of the same, right? Because we're operating out of default instead of design. So that part can be tricky. It's not as gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching as the deep dive into the trauma, or even the relearning to trust. But it can be tricky in the understanding and the grasping of it. And then the final piece is what I call sort of integration. And even the personal vibration is sort of part of integration because you want it to continue. You want to raise your vibration and then have that be your ongoing experience, right? You don't want to drop back down into those heavier, denser energies. So in the integration part, I call this creating a new story and a new vision. So I imagine all of this like a beautiful archaeological dig that's done in this sacred container where in the deep dive section, we are really holding sacred space for unearthing, right? For bringing to the surface all of the pieces that have been discarded or broken or thrown into the shadow or told they weren't good enough, right? So we, with love and compassion and acceptance, we unearth all of those parts. And, like they do in an archaeological dig, we sort of dust them off very, very, very carefully. And we can tell the story about what was happening when this was created, what was going on when this piece was made, right? Whether it's a belief, whether it's a behavior. And we get to tell the story in a space of non-judgment. And then what happens is, in the telling of the story, we also get to bring in the strength and the resilience and the creativity and the tenacity, right? The ferocity of what it took to navigate through those particular circumstances. And then we get to sort of put them back together and create a new mosaic, a new piece of pottery, a new tapestry, whatever you want to see, or however you imagine that. And then that becomes the new story and the new vision. Whether that means using those broken pieces now as the foundation for creating a life, your life purpose, stepping more fully that you've gone through all of this. You can honor it and continue to heal from it, and now perhaps turn around and offer your hand to others. Or perhaps you just find a place of peace and forgiveness and acceptance and self-love within yourself that becomes your new higher vibrating emotion or energy signature. And this is the last piece of the work together. But integration takes time. So even though we may finish the time of our work together, the integration goes on. And, I generally continue to be a resource to clients even after they finish the program, because I want to support them around the integration in the long term. Right? We don't just do all of this and then, we're a new person in the world and we never get triggered again, or we never fall back into an old pattern. So those are the pieces. The hardest parts, again, I think, are that deep dive and learning to trust. But again, for some clients, just creating a new vision for themselves might be the hardest part. For someone else, being able to look at their life and point out the things that they did well and that they're proud of, and that they received some kind of award or acknowledgement or recognition around. It's almost like it's not okay to do that. So as usual, there was a question and I sort of answered it. I didn't indicate the hardest part because I think that's unique and individual to each and every client that I work with. There are some trends, there are some themes, there are some places that are generally harder, but everyone may experience any one of these steps differently. And I lead them through it with as much compassion, curiosity, unconditional love, acceptance, and just and also using all of the tools that I've learned, and mastered over the years, in 30 years of doing work like this. All of the energy-based tools, all of the things that I know about where we are, in our ascension process, and all the metaphysical and spiritual and that whole aspect, bringing in the support, the love, the mentoring of the divine feminine on the planet right now. It's so strong. So many women are beginning to recognize shifts within themselves, whether it's their intuition lighting up, whether it's just heart openings, whether it's connecting with other women in a deeper way than they have before. But whether it's subtle or whether it's a really powerful experience, noticing that balancing of the feminine and masculine energy and the reclamation of more of that divine feminine, so that we can reach a balance that will allow us to create a world that's not so focused on some of the out of balance egoic masculine, not the divine masculine of protection and structure and ideas and all of that and holding space, but the egoic masculine of greed and power over. So, as usual, I answered the question and more. So please feel free to leave comments, share this with anybody you think might be interested. I'm loving doing these campfire videos. So even though camp is going to be over in a couple of days, we'll see what happens. Maybe this will become a regular thing. Probably not every day. But if you'd like to see more or hear more, let me know. If you have prompts that you would like me to answer, or speak to, or make up a story about, feel free to share those as well. All right, my dears, have a beautiful rest of the evening. Sleep well. Have a great day at camp tomorrow. And I will be back with you tomorrow night. Bye now.